Hey, what's up? Welcome to Free Advice Friday. It's good to be back. I know it's been a minute since I was able to do one of these. I think it was actually like mid-January, the last time that I was able to do one of these. I've had a lot of stuff going on. Believe it or not, I actually got sick again for a couple of weeks. Having 4 kids, let me tell you, I don't think there's been a point in the last year where all 6 people that live in this house were healthy simultaneously for more than a week. But I've also been doing some deep dive research on marketing trends for 2026 and just trying to understand what is changing. Is anything changing? And if things are changing, what do those changes mean? And how do we as voice actors adapt to them? And I've been working on putting together a new class with everything that I've been learning. So lots of deep dive research that's been going into that. So that's one of the reasons why I have not been around as well. We'll talk about the class a little bit later on. One of the things that I wanted to talk about right out of the gate here, while we're waiting for some people to jump in and join into the live stream. When is the last time that you legitimately went through your CRM? I mean, fully, completely, legitimately went through your CRM. Now, I'm guessing that for some of you, your CRM doesn't probably look quite like mine. Mine has been live since 2015. There's multi-thousands of people that are in my CRM at this point. And so it's really easy for me to, lose people in the midst of multi-thousands of people in a CRM that's been going on for over a decade. And so one of the things that I've been actually working on since January, the beginning of January, is making a point of spending some time every single day to actually sit down, go through my CRM, and try to get through at least 5 or 10 contacts. And I started back at the very beginning. So I literally sorted it out by date. And so there's people that I have not reached out to since 2015. And those were leads that I had reached out to, did some follow-ups, never got anywhere with them. Obviously, I've learned a lot about marketing since I did those original reach outs as well. But I've been going through and starting all the way back to 2015, updating the contact records, making sure everything is current, making sure that they are still in the same position. If they're not in the same position, have they moved on to a new company? If they moved on to a new company, are they still involved in voiceover, whatever? And as I've been doing that, I've actually been reconnecting with some of these people from 2015, some of these old leads from 2015 that never really went anywhere, and sending some new introductory emails and trying to spark some conversations. And I've actually started a couple of conversations. So these are people that have been sitting in my CRM for over a decade that never went anywhere when I reached out to them originally. And now here we are, 11 years later, I'm trying to spark the conversations again. Obviously, I'm a much better marketer now than I was back then. And it's actually working. It's actually producing some results for me. And it's crazy. And so one of the things that I really want to encourage you with, if you've been using a CRM for any length of time, and I mean, yeah, maybe yours doesn't date back as far as mine does, but there's probably some people in there that you forgot about. There's probably some old leads that you reached out to, and maybe you did some sort of a follow-up with. Maybe you did a couple of follow-ups. Nothing ever came of it, and so you just let it die and completely forgot about them. It might be worth going back and giving those people a second look. And so that's one of the things that I've been working on, and I've actually been kind of surprised by the results, not to mention the fact that it just does me good to get back in my CRM again and just, take a look at what's going on in there and making updates, corrections, etc., where need be. So if that's something that you haven't done for a while, I just want to encourage you, you definitely need to be doing that. Now, this is Free Advice Friday. I am here to answer your voiceover business and marketing questions live on YouTube. If you do have a question that you would like to ask, please feel free to type it in the comments. If you just start your question with a Q, put a Q right there in the beginning of the comment. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to find. Pops out on my screen, makes it a little bit easier for me to, as the chat gets going. So if you do have a question that you would like to ask and get answered, by all means, that is absolutely what I'm here for, and I'm looking forward to it. Oh boy, I reserved my spot for your Hugh, Klitzke, Marc Scott on the Conversational VO Open Studio. Guys, let me tell you, I am sweating bullets over this, okay? I am legitimately sweating bullets over this. Hugh asked me to do this, I don't know, I guess right around Christmas maybe, when he asked me. And every instinct in my body wanted to say no. But Hugh is so freaking good as a coach that I could not pass up on an opportunity to get an hour of coaching from Hugh Klitzke. I am a hardcore introvert. The idea of having to do performance, particularly in commercial, where I tend to struggle, and I've always been honest about that. But having to do that while a whole bunch of people are watching, stressing me out big time. But get this, literally 10 minutes ago, Hugh sent me an email. And look, I'll read the email. He said, "Hey, Mark, you're looking really good. I emailed less than 12 hours ago. You have 55 registrations for your session. That is my fastest number of registrations yet. Make sure that you share the link, please. I want to make sure that some of your people get in on this." So this thing is going to sell out, and I'm going to have to do commercials and do commercial reading to a sellout crowd, everybody watching me. Like, honestly, I can't even talk about it. It's stressing me out so much already. But if you haven't checked it out yet, here's the website. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Open Studio with Hugh Klitzke. So here's what's going to happen. For those of you that aren't familiar with the whole Open Studio thing, I'm going to get live directed by Hugh Klitzke. So he's going to put some spots in front of me. He asked me if I wanted to see the spots ahead. I said no. I said, let's just do it and see what happens. And, if I'm going to humiliate myself, I might as well humiliate myself 100%. So this is going to be an opportunity for me to have some commercials put in front of me, read them. Hugh is going to direct me through them, coach me where needed, correct, all that sort of stuff. And you get to be a fly on the wall watching while this is happening. So the session is happening on February 18th. So next week, 7 o'clock. If you want to register, you can do it on this website. Again, I put the link into the chat there. Take a look for it. Mark Scott is in the hot seat. Oh my gosh. Like, seriously, that is just stressing me out. That is stressing me out. But I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to have the opportunity to work with Hugh. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's what's going on with Open Studio. So for those of you who are interested in seeing that, I just recorded a brand new commercial demo with J. Michael. What day did we do that? Tuesday. We recorded Tuesday. We were actually supposed to record 2 weeks ago. I was sick, couldn't do it. So just recorded a new commercial demo with JMC. And, he sounded like he was pretty optimistic about it when we finished the session. I've been working with Brad Highland, working on trying to figure out this whole commercial thing. So if ever there was a time that I was ready for this, I suppose it's going to be now, but it's going to be an interesting experience, to say the least. My CRM is so sad. I actually plan to delegate that to a VA, but she got injured and we're on hold. It's in the works, though. And you know what? That is a totally legitimate thing. If you don't have the time to manage it, if you don't have the desire to manage it, it's not a fun thing for some people. I mean, not to say that it's fun for me either, but outsourcing it, that is totally an option. But let me tell you, there is so much value in that CRM, but it only works if you're using it properly. And that is a big deal. And so going through and taking the time to make sure that everything is filled out, that you've got things tagged, that you can sort your database accordingly, those are all so important. David said, a post from a casting director complaining about poor quality auditions for VDC and others, decided to go back to agents to get agents' thoughts. Yeah. David, I can tell you, it's been a couple years now, but I did a casting site series on my podcast a couple of years ago, and I had the CEO of Voice 123, Roth. I had Armin from Bidalgo on the show. Liz from Cast Voices came on the show. And so I was interviewing all of these CEOs of these online casting sites, and every single one of them, I asked the same question. None of them knew that I was going to ask the question. Every single one of them, I asked the same question. They all gave me the exact same answer, which was around 80% of the auditions were bad audio. That blew my mind. There is zero excuse for a voice actor to be delivering bad audio today. Zero excuse. There are so many people who can help you with that. So many good people who can help you with that. George the Tech offers amazing services. Tim Tippett's, Jordan Reynolds. Like, there's so many people that can help you with that. And it's not that expensive to spend an hour with somebody. And keep in mind, you're literally selling your sound. So if your sound is bad, like, what the heck? Right? I don't understand. So yeah, that is universal across the board. When I talked to Marilyn Wisner, when I talked to Tina Marasco, when I talked to Kelly Mashinsky, 3 top casting directors, highly respected casting directors, they talked about the fact that bad audio, poor audio quality was something that was consistent with auditions that they were receiving. Like, it literally blows my mind. You could be the greatest voice actor in the world, but if you have bad audio, it does not matter. And here's what I would say. Unless you are a professional engineer or have some deep engineering background, you probably can't be sure that you're delivering good audio unless you have somebody else listen to it who is a professional engineer. And that does not mean post an MP3 in a Facebook group and get some feedback from the community. I'm saying send it to Cliff Zellman, send it to Jordan Reynolds, send it to Dan Friedman, send it to George the Tech. Like, find that person and get them to evaluate your audio and tell you whether or not it is good. It is worth it for the peace of mind. If you are a Wovo member, Wovo offers the studio approval. Go through that studio approval process. I did that when I was a Wovo member, and I didn't do it because I thought that it was going to make all the difference for me putting myself out there. Nobody has any idea what nobody outside of Wovo has any idea what Wovo studio approval is. I did it for my own peace of mind. I did it to know that people who are smarter than me on that subject listened to my stuff and said it was good. And now, peace. If you've never done something like that, you should absolutely do that. You should absolutely do that. All right, let's see. What do you guys want to talk about? What can I answer for you? Open Studio link is in the chat. If you had to start building your CRM from scratch today, how would you approach it? I don't think that I would do anything differently from what I did. When I did it, actually, you know what? There is one thing. There's one thing that I would do. When I signed up originally with Nimble, it gave me the opportunity to import contacts. And so I imported a bunch of contacts. Not all of them, but I imported a bunch of contacts. And I don't think that I would do that. Actually, I know I wouldn't do that this time around. There are too many variables inside of a CRM that need to be set in order for it to work properly. So I'm going to speak specifically to Nimble in this case because it's the CRM that I know. I need to make sure that I have all of their contact information, obviously. I want to have their name. I want to have their email address. I want to have the company that they're working for. I'd like to have at least a basic geographic location. You know, are they based in the United States? Are they based in, the UK? Whatever. I'd like to have a couple of social media links, if at all possible. Particularly, I'm looking for Instagram and LinkedIn. Those are the two that I use the most. But then there are things that are specific to Nimble. So there's the additional lead fields. I want to have that information filled out. There's tags. I want to have that information filled out. And the reason why I want to have that information filled out is because that's what allows me to be really targeted and direct in my marketing. I can search my CRM based on those lead fields and those tags. If you import 1,000 people all at once, you still have to go through all 1,000 people and set up every single one of those contact records individually to make sure that everything is set properly. I would rather just do that one at a time, which sounds ridiculous, but trust me, I'm going to do 5 or 10 a day, whatever, set a goal for yourself. I'm going to import them. I'm going to set up their contact record and fill it out completely. And then I'm going to contact them. So as you're working through it, not only are you building your CRM and making sure that everything is up to date and making sure that all the records are correct, but you're also refreshing your database as far as your contact cycle is concerned. And so that's one of the things that I would say. Most CRMs will give you the ability to import large contact lists. If that contact list is not optimized already for a CRM, it might actually be more of a headache than it's worth. And like, do you really need your grandma in your CRM? She's probably in your contact list. You probably emailed her, but do you really need her in your CRM? Probably not. Do you really need your dog trainer in your CRM? Probably not. And so not everybody needs to be in there in the first place. So I think that you got to be really strategic about how you approach setting up your CRM. Carol says, as far as social media goes, should I start new separate accounts for my business or try somehow to revise my personal socials to reflect my branding? If your existing accounts don't have a lot going on them at this point anyway, I think you can revive them. I really do think that you can revive them. I think there are a couple of options or a couple of instances where I would consider separating my CRM. Not my CRM, my socials. One, if you are a very controversial or strongly opinionated individual, or you've got some very strong positions on things, and it could be political, it could be something else, doesn't matter, I don't want to get into it. It may be to your advantage to have two separate accounts, because if you happen to be really strongly opinionated or very controversial, if a potential buyer is checking out your social media, that can be a deterrent for certain people. And so in that case, you might want to keep your personal and your business and have them totally separated. The other instance where I think it may be in your best interest to have two separate accounts, and I think this also can potentially depend on the platform as well. TikTok would be a really good example of this. TikTok's algorithm is designed for people to do one thing. So if you go on TikTok and you post food videos, then great. It knows that you post food video content, and it's going to push your channel out to people who love food video content. But if you go on TikTok and you post food videos, but you also post sneaker reviews, but then you also post voiceover projects, but then you also post, I don't know, your professional gift wrapping skills, TikTok can't figure out who you are, and they can't figure out who to feed you to. And so your content is not going to perform as well. And so I think there are certain instances, if you're targeting specific niches or trying to do something, in a specific niche, where depending on the platform, again, it might be to your advantage to consider having a separate account. And so that is absolutely something to think about. Guys, I want to take a quick minute here. If you haven't had a chance to go and listen to my conversation with Andy Roth, casting director, brilliant guy. I had never met him. We had no idea who each other was, but somebody said, you need to get Andy on your podcast. And I reached out to him and he responded almost immediately, and he agreed almost immediately, which that in and of itself impressed me, made me want to have him on. But what an amazing conversation that we had. If you haven't had a chance to go and listen to that one, I would really encourage you to do it. Here's a quick teaser of it. How do we fall in love with the audition?
People say, oh, how do you break in? And it's like, well, nobody's trying to keep you out.
So you're never auditioning for just whatever you're auditioning for.
It's not who you know, it's who knows you.
You're our cheerleader. You're not our gatekeeper. You're our biggest fan.
Will social media be the death and downfall of society?
If other voice actors get upset because you're talking too much about your work, who cares?
What I'm listening for is who a person is.
Overthinking is our superpower.
If I've asked you to audition, I want you there.
That's a golden nugget right there. It was such a fun conversation. So many great insights, so many little golden nuggets that Andy dropped throughout that. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, it's here on the YouTube channel. You can watch it. Of course, it's available anywhere fine podcasts are given away for free as well. So please, by all means, make sure that you go take some time, check that one out. I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. Again, if you are just jumping in on the live stream here, welcome to Free Advice Friday. If you have a voiceover business or marketing question that you would like to ask and get answered, I am here to answer as many questions as I possibly can as we work our way through this. I would just say, if you do have a question that you would like to ask, if you could put a Q beside it before you type your comment, it just makes it a little bit easier when the chat gets really busy. It's hard for me to separate out what's a question, what's not a question. I'm sitting here live operating by myself, but that Q stands out. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to find. But by all means, if you have a question, I'm certainly happy to answer as many questions as I can. TJ says, how important do you think it is to track dynamic QR code scans in your business? Where does it rank among marketing investment strategies for you? Probably not as high as it should, maybe. Tracking analytics in general maybe doesn't rank as high as it should, but I'm going to tell you what I've been doing. Now, this is not specific to QR codes, but I have so much data from an analytics standpoint that I do nothing with because I don't have time and I don't know how to do it. And so one of the things that I have started getting into the habit of, and this is more for my website, I go into Google Search Console once a month. I go into Google Search Console and I download the raw data. And then I go into Google Analytics and I download the raw data. And then I feed that raw data into ChatGPT and just say, what's the story here? And I get it to analyze everything for me. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know what I should be looking for, what I shouldn't be looking for, what is important, what isn't important. I'm not an analytics guy. I don't know. And I can't, hire somebody to do all that sort of stuff for me. So I'm getting ChatGPT to do it. And it's giving me a really clear understanding of, okay, here's where we're trending. This is what's working. This isn't what's working. Let's try to do this. This is how we can correct that. And it's actually giving me action items that I can move forward on, which has been really helpful. And so specifically to tracking your QR codes, there's value in determining whether or not anybody's clicking through. I think that's important. It tells you whether or not it's worked at all, right? If you go through a really big campaign and get no clicks, that's a problem. I think you can also see if you go through a really great campaign and you get a bunch of clicks, but it doesn't result in any conversion. Nobody actually reaches out to you, or nobody actually sends an email or makes a call or schedules a meeting or whatever. That can tell you something too. And that might tell you more about the page content and whether or not there's anything that you need to adjust there, making it really obvious for people to take that next step. And so I do think there are some things that we can learn through analytics. I just think, the problem that we have is we're all solopreneurs who have 1,000 things to do, only so many hours in the day, and only so much that we can do. And so we have to try to prioritize and figure out, what is actually important, what actually isn't. But that's where I'm starting to feel more and more like AI can help me with some of these things. And that's the sort of stuff that I think AI should be helping me with, that not the creative stuff and the video stuff and the voiceover stuff and all of that sort of stuff. You can take away the menial office stuff that I don't want to do anyway. One of my agent requests that I send them nearly raw audio for auditions. Is that common? Is there any suggestions on what I can edit? And if so, yeah, by and large, I don't want to speak to the specific agent because I don't know, but by and large, what they're talking about when they say raw audio is that it is not processed. So no major compression, no EQing or anything like that. Should you take out the mistakes? Of course. Can you declick it? Yes, absolutely. Can you, if there's any big clicks or anything, mouth clicks and stuff like that, can you take that out? Sure. Any huge breaths that you want to reduce? Yes, you can do all that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's an interesting conversation. I've had this conversation with agents and I've had this conversation with tech guys, engineers and stuff as well. And the problem is just with the word raw. We assume, I just record it and send it straight as is. But really what they're saying is they don't want you to do any processing or mastering of that audio. And particularly when you're working at the agent level, they're working with professional studios, all that sort of stuff. They've got engineers, like the finished project is going to be done by an engineer. They want to be able to do what they need to do to your audio file. And it's easier for them to do it if it's just a, raw file, as it were. I'm interested in working with meditation and mental health apps. What is the best way to find the right contacts? I think if you actually went into your Apple App Store or your Google Play Store, for example, and you could pull up a list of the top 50 meditation apps, and you'll be able to see who the developer is behind those apps. It'll show you right on the page who the developer is behind those apps. So from there, you could either find their website or potentially look them up on LinkedIn. And then from there, you figure out who the right contact is likely to be, and you could start reaching out that way. I think you could do the same thing technically on a YouTube channel as well. That's one thing that we have going for us now is the information that we need now more than ever is easier to find than it has been in the past. All right, let's see. When auditioning for a 60-second spot or something slightly longer, is your preference to record it straight through or break it up by paragraph and join the clips? I'm always trying to record it straight through. That doesn't mean that I won't go back and pick up a section. When I sit down to clean up the audio and I decide, I want to say that line a different way, or I want to do that a little bit or whatever, I will go back through. But for me, personally, I want to just be able to read it straight through because I think there's a more consistent flow. If it works for you to go section by section, I don't think the client cares one way or another, right? The client just cares, does this sound good? Does it sound like what I'm looking for? Does it sound like what the specs were? The biggest thing would just be, does it flow? If it sounds like edited paragraphs and they don't come together cohesively, that's a problem. And so that would be the only thing that I would be cautious of in doing it that way. Liz says, I second Mark's thoughts about going through your CRM one contact at a time. A couple of years ago, I did just that. I had several thousand contacts and went through everyone. Look, it is a pain in the butt. Not going to lie. Not a fun thing to do. But at the same time, I've really been enjoying digging into what's already there. So much of what we do is new lead generation. You know, we're going out and we're looking for new production companies. We're looking for new contacts. We're looking for new people on LinkedIn. And half the work is already done for me at this point because these people are already in my CRM and I just haven't talked to them in a really long time. And so some of them, okay, they're not there anymore. Great. Get them out of the CRM. I don't need them. Some of them moved on to a new company. Great. Find out who the new company is, find a new contact, find a new email address, whatever. And I've been doing some of that too. But it's been fun to go through and just see, can I find gold here again? Right? I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the live stream that I'm working on a brand new class. Marketing is changing in 2026. And one of the things that I would encourage you to think about is if what you are doing is not working, and particularly if what you were doing was working before, but it's not working now, it could be that that thing that you're doing is something that has shifted. It could be that that thing that you're doing is a trend that has changed. And so I've spent the last 3 or 4 weeks really deep diving into this subject of what is going on in the world of marketing, what is changing, what has stayed the same, what is very different. And the end result of that is I'm going to be teaching a new class here in a couple of weeks. So March 3rd, it's a Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 2026 marketing trends for the VOpreneur. I'm going to walk you through what is changing, because I think that it's really important for you to understand that. But what's even more important is, what do I do about it? Okay, great. It's nice to know that that trend has shifted, but what does that look like on a practical level? And that's what I'm going to walk you through on a practical level. So if you go to VOpreneur.com, click on the store button, it's right here. Or you know what? I can put a direct link in the chat. Let me just do that right now. 2026 marketing trends workshop. I'm going to put a link in the chat there as well. But this is what this is what I'm going to do. It's an hour-long session, brand new session, 1 hour long. I'll try to leave some time for a Q&A as well. Ideally, you can attend live so that you can participate in the Q&A. Again, it's happening Tuesday, March 3rd, 7 o'clock Eastern. But if you can't attend live, don't worry. Sign up. You're going to get access to a complete video replay as soon as the session is done. But we're going to talk about marketing moves that are fading, and we're going to talk about what are some of the trends that have come in to replace them. We're going to look at AI and how that is a factor, particularly on the trust side of things. We're not going to talk about AI specifically from a voiceover standpoint, but more from a marketing and trust standpoint, which is a big deal right now. We're going to talk about visibility and what that looks like, even with low reach. We're going to talk about some systems that can help you to just get some of these things done. I really want this to be not just information-based, but really actionable, practical. You know me, that's what I'm all about, actionable, practical. So here's what's changing. Here's what you need to change, or here's how you need to adapt to keep up with it. And there's a few trends that I have definitely uncovered. And I'll tell you, part of the reason why I've been deep diving into this is just for my own sake. I've got a new commercial demo coming here in a few weeks. And I want to make sure that when I reach out with that commercial demo, that I'm going to get the most bang for my buck with every single email that I send or every single social media connection that I make. And so I'm just really trying to stay on top of what is going on right now. So that's the class. It's 2026 marketing trends for voice actors. You can sign up for it at VOpreneur.com. I put the link in the chat. Again, Tuesday, March 3rd, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you can't attend live, you can register anyway. You'll get access to the video replay. The seating is limited for this one, and it is likely going to sell out. So, if that is something that is interesting to you, you want to see where we're going, there's a good opportunity to learn. Within your Nimble sequence, how much delay have you found to be the most effective between your intro and your follow-ups? It can't be any more than a week, with a caveat. There's always got to be a caveat. I think the first few follow-ups probably need to come no more than a week, within a week of each other. I think if you're running an extended sequence to new leads, then your last couple emails, you could probably delay a little bit further. But one of the questions that I always ask, I do this in coaching sessions all the time, and somebody's like, I can't send a follow-up a week later. And okay, tell me 5 people, not people you know, 5 new people who emailed you last week. Name them right now. 5 new people who emailed you last week. None of us can do that. That's why you can get away with sending a follow-up email a week later, because we don't remember anyway. That's why we need the follow-ups. All right, let's see. What else? How do you decide how much to budget for business reinvestment in a year, gear, education, software, etc.? This is a really interesting question because I think it partly depends on where you're at. Obviously, in your early years, there's a lot more to invest in. You have to get your microphone. You have to get your computer. You have to get your interface. There's certain things that just have to happen. But, I've got my Neumann U87, and I'm expecting that that's going to last me for the rest of my career. I've got my Sennheiser 416 now, and I'm expecting that that's going to last me for the rest of my career. The investments that I make now are stupid investments because I'm like, oh, this looks like a fun toy. I should get one of those, like my Stream Deck, for example, or the Rodecaster that's sitting over here beside me. Did I need this Rodecaster in order? Look at this thing, guys. Do I need that in order to be able to do live streaming? Absolutely not. I do not need that. But look at the blinky lights and the colorful buttons. And oh my gosh, of course I needed that. So yeah, the investments, I think it does depend on where you're at in your career and making sure that you're setting aside more money early in your career, a little bit less for studio and stuff like that. But I think the education never stops. I absolutely think the education never stops. I don't know that you can put a straight percentage on it either, because I think there's a difference between somebody making 30 grand a year and somebody making 250 grand a year. And I'm not just going to say you got to put aside 5%, because if you're making 250 grand a year, do you really need to be spending, $12,000 on training every year? No, you probably don't. So I think part of that depends on where you're at too, right? But the most important thing is just acknowledging that, and I think this probably speaks more. Maybe it doesn't. I was going to say this probably speaks more to newer voice actors, but maybe it doesn't, because I think older voice actors tend to get really complacent. But for newer voice actors, it's easy to think that there's a point where you graduate. I went to the conferences. I did some workshops. I've taken some classes. I have my demos now. I'm ready to start marketing. I booked a few voiceovers. And now I've graduated, and now I'm a full-time voice actor. That's not how it works. You always need to be looking for the next thing to learn, the next opportunity. Now, don't allow yourself to get caught in a perpetual state of coaching where you never come out, but also don't allow yourself to get to a point where you just think, okay, I'm good. I'm booking. I know what I'm doing. I know it all. And then you don't do any more training. That's a very dangerous place to get into as well. So is there a specific percentage that I would say? I think probably early on in your career, the first few years in your career when you're building things up, 5 or 10% is probably not a crazy number to say to set aside. And keep in mind, all this stuff is tax write-offs too. So there's tax advantages as well to making those investments, both in education and capital investments like studio equipment, things of that nature. I also think, though, that it doesn't hurt to have a business emergency fund. I have had an interface crap out on me. It's happened to me. And I had to go out and buy a brand new interface when I was not planning on having to buy a brand new interface. Like, that's a real thing. I try to replace my studio computer every 4 years, and not specifically maybe because I need a new computer every 4 years. I can amortize it out over 4 years. From a depreciation standpoint. But I always want to make sure that I've got a new, maxed out computer in my studio so that I don't have to worry about it being too slow or not being able to keep up, spending so much time on rendering files, whatever. So those are things that you need to be thinking about as well, so that you're always setting aside, okay, I want to replace my computer every 4 years. I want to replace my cell phone every whatever it is, 3 years, 4 years. So there are certain things like that that you need to be thinking about as well, because then you can budget for them, which is also going to help you to figure out how much I should or shouldn't be setting aside. It's a good question, and it's something that I think we don't always think about enough. What are your thoughts on the voiceover industrial complex, i.e. training and coaching glut? I think that it is no different than any other business or any other industry. I think if you're a real estate agent, there are countless courses, workshops, podcasts, conferences, name it, to help you be a better realtor. And some of those things are 100% legitimate, and some of those things are total crap. I do my own investing. There are a million different places to go for information on the stock market. There are coaches and gurus and guides and experts all across social media. They've got Discords and Substacks and websites and blogs and circle communities. There's books, there's conferences and webinars and classes and workshops, and some of them are legit and some of them are trash. I think the voiceover industry is no different. I think that there are aspects of the training side of the voiceover industry that are 100% legitimate. I think there are aspects of the industry that are 100% crap. And you have to be careful. You have to be very careful, because I think that it's really, really easy, particularly in the social media environment where it's so easy for somebody to position themselves as an expert. It's really easy to get misled. And it's really easy to spend a lot of money on something that ends up not producing any ROI for you. But I think the other side of that equation is that we hold responsibility in that. If you go out and you buy a car and that car ends up being a lemon, is it the dealer's fault for selling you a lemon, or is it your fault for not going over the car thoroughly or having a trusted mechanic take a look at it to make sure that things were in order? You know what I mean? Like, we have to hold some responsibility in that as well. And so it's up to us to vet our sources of information. It's up to us to choose where we go for demos, for coaching, for conferences, for all that sort of stuff. I do not regret any investment that I have made in education for myself in the span of my career, because every time I've done it, I have learned something new, and it has made me a better voice actor, a better performer, a better marketer, a better business operator, whatever. But I'm very cautious about and intentional about where I choose to spend my money. And one of the lines that I have used for years, and I came from a book, I can't remember which book it came from, but be careful who your teachers are. And that's a big part of it. Be careful who your teachers are. Do I think that there is a voiceover industrial complex? Yeah, 100% I do. And I don't think that's something that will go away anytime soon. As long as there are people with money, there will be people who are trying to take it. Some of those people, there's going to be a fair exchange of value. And some of those people are going to screw you. And I think you're going to find that regardless of where you are and what industry you're in and where you work. And voiceover is, it's a part of that. For better or for worse, it is a part of that. But do I think it's all bad? No. Nope, I don't. I think there are a lot of amazing people teaching a lot of amazing things. And I think that part of it is up to us to take the personal responsibility and discipline to implement what we are learning. All right, let's see. What else you guys want to talk about? What else do you want to talk about? New episode of the podcast. I know I talked about Andy Roth earlier. That was actually last week's episode. The episode that dropped yesterday, direct marketing is not dead. I hear this so much, that direct marketing is dead. And I'll tell you what, in almost all instances, I'll tell you what the problem is. It is not that direct marketing is dead. It is just that the way that you are marketing is dead. The way that you are marketing is not working. And so I dig into that partly in the podcast. But that's also part of what this class that I'm going to be teaching here in a couple of weeks is about. It's about making sure that you're still doing the right things, making sure that you're keeping up with the trends. When it comes to performance, what books today probably wasn't booking 5 years ago, probably wasn't booking 10 years ago, definitely wasn't booking 15 years ago, because the industry evolves and the trends change in what is booking and what is going on to TV and what is going on to radio and what is booking in film. So we know that this happens. We know that trends change because we've lived through it in our careers. You know, if you've been around long enough, it's no different. You know, the way that Facebook works today is not the same that it worked 15 years ago. The way that email marketing works today is not the same that it worked 5 years ago. We have to stay on top of those trends. And so if you find that the things that you are doing are no longer working, then it might be time to adjust what you're doing. Do you see AI agentic being used for marketing? I think a lot of people are already using it for marketing, and I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of marketing is really terrible, because it becomes very formulaic and very generic, and I think that's problematic. Is there a time on the horizon where that changes? Yes, absolutely. There is a time on the horizon where that changes. And it will be able to be much more deeply personal. And I think that's probably coming. I personally like to use AI for all the crap that I don't want to do, or the stuff that I don't specifically know how to do, the menial stuff. This, you know, like I talked about earlier, like going through my Google Analytics. I don't got time for that crap. I don't have time to go through and do all that. So let it do that stuff for me. So those are the types of things that I'm using it for. Am I using it for my marketing right now? No, I'm not. Do I use it for brainstorming and ideation? Yes. Do I use it to write my emails or write my social media posts or anything like that? No, I do not. I still want that stuff to be me. I want it in my voice, in my language, in my words. I want it to sound like it, you know, it sounded like if I was telling you about it on Free Advice Friday, for example. I would say on a large scale, you know, corporate, Fortune 500, Fortune 100, you know, companies that have unlimited budgets, you know, they're going to find ways to incorporate it a lot more efficiently, probably a lot sooner, a lot better than we are, the individual. But I think we're still very early in this AI game. I also think the AI game is evolving faster than any other game that we've previously been a part of. What do you think about cold calling versus cold email? I think that there is almost no scenario in the world that would convince me to make a cold call, but that is a personal choice. I'm not a cold caller. On the flip side of that, I've had conversations with guys who do cold calling. One guy in particular, he showed me the data. He was getting a 30% response rate, like a 30% conversion rate on his cold calls. In my best email marketing efforts with voiceover, I've never got 30%, I don't think. Maybe for little stretches here and there, but over the length of my email marketing history, yeah, no, not 30%. So it can work if you can do it. It can absolutely work if you can do it. It's not for everyone. And I think that's important to remember. It's not for everyone. But if you are somebody who is comfortable with that, you know, when I talk to people who tell me that, you know, I used to be in sales, I'm like, why aren't you cold calling? I mean, now some people, that's why they're not in sales anymore. They're like, I literally can't make another cold call ever. I just can't stand it. But then there are other people who are like, yeah, why am I not cold calling? And so I do think that makes a difference as well. I think, you got to think about what you're comfortable with, where your expertise happens. But do I think that there is a place for cold calling? 100%. Just like I think there's a place for LinkedIn, and I think there's a place for TikTok, and I think there's a place for Instagram, for email marketing, for in-person networking, for going to conferences, all the different ways that you can market yourself. I think there's a place for all of the different ways. I say it all the time. The most effective form of marketing is the one that you will do. The most effective form of marketing is the one that you will do. What's happening, brother? Good to finally get back and watch Free Advice Friday. Yeah, I think the last one was like January 16th or something like that, and I do apologize. I can't always fit it into my schedule, but excited to be back today. And I do have one already scheduled for next week, so I'm committed to trying to make that work. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you will get notified when I am going live anytime for Free Advice Friday, and you don't have to miss the next one. Again, if you have a question that you would like to ask and get answered, what time is it? 1:46. I've still got some time here. If I've missed your question, I apologize. I am not intentionally trying to miss anybody's questions. There's a lot going on in the chat there. So if I have missed your question, feel free to re-ask it. Just retype it. Again, just put that Q beside it. If you have a question that you would like to ask and get answered, that is what I am here for. If you are enjoying the live stream, would you please do me a favor and hit the like button on this video? I would certainly appreciate that. I don't know. They say that it helps other people to find it. We'll see whether or not it does. But if you would hit that like button, I would certainly appreciate that. Let's see. What am I missing over here? Andy Roth's podcast was amazing. One of your best. Thank you. Next week's episode is John Lanow. We're talking about websites. John is taking an entirely different approach to his website building. And I really like it. I really like it. And so brought him on the show to talk about what he's doing. So we talk about websites. We talk about what needs to be on your website. We talk about some of the things that voice actors are missing, some of the opportunities that we're missing with our websites. We get into the SEO versus GEO, AI SEO, whatever they're calling it today. GEO is generative engine optimization. But we get into that, and I definitely think there's some opportunities there as well. But yeah, going to be a good episode. My friends always give me grief for investing in classes and coaching, and it's exhausting to justify it to people who aren't in the industry. Well, here's one question that I would ask. Are your friends who are giving you grief achieving high levels of success in their careers because they are continuously investing in themselves? Or are they, pretty settled and comfortable and, and I'm not asking that to be insulting or derogatory. I think it's a legitimate question. I think that we have to look at who is in our circle and who is giving us information, right? Do not take fitness advice from me, guys, okay? If I ever get on here and I start giving you fitness advice, just tell me to shut my face. Like, I am not in a position to be giving you fitness advice because, I am not fit. So I'm not going to talk about that. So I don't want to take advice on coaching, training, investing, whatever, from people who aren't doing it for themselves, because I don't know that their opinions are going to be the best opinions in that manner. Here's what I will tell you. I have had a really unique opportunity through the podcast to talk to a lot of people who are achieving it at high levels in this industry and in different areas as well. And I would tell you that there's two things. There's two things that are consistent across the board. The most successful voice actors that I have talked to on the podcast, doesn't matter to the genre, doesn't matter where they're from geographically, it doesn't matter if they're male or female or like none of that. The two things that come up consistently across the board, I can run that thread through every one of those conversations. Number one, they never stop training. Does that mean that they're training to the degree that they were training when they were getting started? No, not really. But does it mean that they're always trying to stay on top of what is going on and looking for opportunities to learn new things? Yes, they do. So they are always training. That is the first thread. The second thread is relationships. They are amazing at building incredible relationships with the right people and maintaining those relationships. And I will tell you something else. I read a lot of biographies, and mostly I read biographies of entrepreneurs, some political figures, presidents, prime ministers, things of that nature, whatever. That is the common theme through every successful person, through every person that I've ever read a biography on, regardless of what they do. That is a common theme, is relationships and network. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's see. What else is going on? Hey, Mark, any advice for setting up daily systems? I want to set up my VO marketing audition admin system, and I'm learning to conquer my ADHD and past procrastination. Want to push the needle daily. Matt, great question. If I may, I did an episode recently with Tim Heller. Let's see if we can find it. Let's go over to the YouTube channel here. And nope, didn't show up there. Where is it? Where's my interview with Tim? Hang on. Videos. Here we go. I'm going to put this interview in the chat. Actually, let me copy this here. Okay. Tim Heller has ADHD and has built 2 successful businesses. And that was one of the things that we got into in the episode, was talking about how he's managed to do that and some of the systems and processes that he has put in place to help him to be able to do that. I think time blocking can be very much to your advantage. And that could just look like, 30-minute windows. Or maybe it's a 25-minute window, right? So you give yourself 2 25-minute windows and 2 5-minute breaks in an hour. So I'm going to spend 25 minutes doing auditioning, take a 5-minute break, do something, reset. 25-minute window to send some marketing emails, take a 5-minute break, do a reset. Whatever that looks like. But time blocking, I think, can be really advantageous. And that is something that I leaned into heavily early in my career when I was trying to get things growing. Part of it is also prioritizing. It is looking at what are the most important things that I need to be getting done today and making sure that those are the things that you are focusing on. I think it's really important that new people hear your voice every single day. That needs to be a priority. What does that look like? Maybe that looks like auditioning. Maybe that looks like sending emails. Maybe that looks like doing LinkedIn. It can look like a bunch of things, but so that's part of it too. Prioritizing what actually needs to get done, making note of that, and then time blocking in order to be able to get it done. And I think those things can make a big difference. I have more tabs open than Mark. I'm not ashamed. Look, the only reason why I have multiple tabs open on there is literally for this live stream so that I can push this button and I can go, 2026 marketing trends, there's the class. Or I can push this button. Oh, here's the latest episode of the podcast. Or I can push this button. Oh, apparently that one's promoting the 2026 marketing trends as well. I pre-open the tabs and schedule them so that when I'm in the live stream, it's one less thing that I have to go looking for. I have a 49-inch ultra widescreen monitor. And on that 49-inch ultra widescreen monitor, I have 5 virtual desktops, so I can just swipe between screens. It is not uncommon for me to have 20 different browser windows open in 2 different browsers spread across 5 different desktops at any given time and swiping back and forth. It is complete chaos. There are some areas where this 49-inch monitor has been the most amazing productivity tool that I have ever purchased. And there are some where it's like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. There's too much real estate and too many virtual background or desktops. And now I can't even keep up with where things are. All right. What else is going on? If you're a newer voice actor without much work behind you, how can you talk about benefits rather than features without sounding super hypothetical and phony? Because I think you know what you're capable of, for one thing. And I think that we worry about the breadth of our work more than anybody who's hiring us. I've been in this business for a really long time. And I don't think one time a new client that I've been having a conversation with has ever asked me, how many years have you been in this industry? Or can you tell me who else you've worked with? I think it's a corporate thing. I think it's a resume thing. You know, when we're applying for a new job, we have to put that on our resume, our past work history or whatever. And so I think maybe that's what makes us think that it matters. But voiceover is different. That person who is interested in hiring you cares about one thing and one thing only, at least to start. Is their voice the voice that I'm hearing in my head for this project? If your voice matches what they are looking for, it does not matter if you are 1 month, 1 year, or 1 decade into your career. It doesn't matter if you've done only local commercials or if you've booked a couple of regionals or if you have a national Super Bowl campaign behind you. It doesn't matter to the client at that point in time. What matters is your voice matches the voice that they were looking for that particular project. All the other stuff is just our own insecurities, I think. You know, us dealing with imposter syndrome, trying to figure out why we actually don't deserve this job. And like, not to, get shrinky on anyone, but so don't overthink that part of it. Can you deliver? That's it. I think that's it. And then, of course, Robert asked the question, do you have a VO resume? After I just finished talking about why these things don't matter. I actually do have a VO resume. I can count the number of times that I've handed out my VO resume on one hand with fingers left over. Mostly it's been agents who have asked to see it. That makes sense, right? Agents do want to see what you bring to the table. They want to see who you've worked with, all that sort of stuff. Individual buyers, though, most of the time, I don't think they care at all. But yes, I do have a VO resume, 1 page, made it in Canva, super easy. I got my genres that I'm available for. I have contact information, social media links. I have some of my client lists. I have studio information, some of the training that I have done. What else do I have on there? I have my Wovo studio approval, Source Connect, things like that. But yeah, simple 1-page resume. What would be my motivation if the starter seed money is about out without any steady clients? You have to find your why. Why did you decide to do this in the first place? And you have to focus on that. And I think you have to focus on that now more than ever. Because if you focus on the fact that the seed money has run out, you don't want to come into the booth operating from a place of desperation. You don't want to be marketing from a place of desperation. You don't want to be negotiating from a place of desperation. What I mean is, I don't want to ever put myself in a situation where I am so like, I need this job or I don't eat, because I'm not going to be as good. I'm not going to be as good in the booth. I'm not going to make as good of choices. I'm going to take projects that I might not have otherwise taken, settle for rates that I may not have otherwise settled for. And so I can't come from a place of desperation. And so I have to have a bigger reason for why I'm doing it. And I have to be able to focus on that. And I just have to remind myself that, man, this is hard. Like anything. When I started in radio, it was hard. I made a lot of sacrifices. And it took time to get to where I wanted to get in my career. You know, when I started on the fire department, it was hard. And there was a lot of training. And I made a lot of rookie mistakes in the beginning. And, you know, you don't just start out of recruit school as a great firefighter. Like, these things are hard and they take time to build and they take time to get good. And, you know, next day is going to be better than the day before. And the next month is going to be better than the month before. And the next year is going to be better than the year before. And so you got to have something else that you can focus on that reminds you, what the heck did I even tell myself to do this for in the first place? Like, if you told yourself, I'm going to go do this voiceover thing because I think it's really easy and I can spend a little bit of money and build a career, it's not going to work. If you told yourself, like, I have this creative passion inside of me and I need to be able to get it out and I want to share it and I want to tell stories and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, that's a very different place to come from. So I think you have to find your why. And I think the why has to be better than just booking a job and putting money in the bank. Obviously, those things are important, but it needs to be bigger than that. All right, guys, I got to jump out, get ready for the next thing. As a reminder, one more time, 2026 Marketing Trends for Voice Actors is happening on Tuesday, March the 3rd, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to be live on Zoom, be about an hour long. I will do my best to leave an opportunity for Q&A for those that are able to attend live. If you can't attend live, sign up for this class anyway, because you will get access to a video replay. I'm going to walk you through what I see changing in 2026 in marketing. And then I'm going to walk you through, what does that mean, practically speaking, for your voiceover business? What do I do about it? So that's what's going on there. I put the link in the chat. Again, check it out. Would love to have you sign up for that. Thank you so much for watching Free Advice Friday. If you did jump in late, you'll be able to go back and watch the replay earlier. So that exists right here on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out the episode with Andy Roth. That was a really, really good one. Some good stuff on the podcast already this year. And I thank you guys for always listening and being so supportive. Just before I jump out, hit the like button. Pretty please. Kinsley goes, please, pretty please, pretty please. That's what Kinsley does. I'd bring her here and make her do it, but she's at Graham's house right now. But, you know, I bet you that the most adorable 19-month-old that you've ever seen going, pretty please, would make you hit the like button. So do it for her. Think about her while you're doing it. All right, guys, thank you so much. As always, whatever you decide to do this weekend, have fun, stay safe, and go find some leads.